For as long as I've been taking in reptiles, which is 5 years, people have been asking why I don't just become a non-profit, because apparently it'll solve all my problems. So finally, after 5 years, I'm making a video about why it's not happening. Now, to most people, they would say the initial goal of Emerald Scales was a place that people can send reptiles when they can't keep them, Emerald Scales will make sure they're healthy, and then sell them to a new owner while verifying them to make sure the animal is going to a good place. It's a win for the animal, a win for the rehomer, and a win for the buyer while we take a profit along the way. But this is technically not the initial goal. The initial goal was just to be a breeder, a reptile breeder, like any other. The difference was a better reptile breeder. We saw issues with the ethics and the way that breeders did things. We had talked to many of them, seen many of them, purchased from many of them. We were just going to do what they do, but improve it in every way. We were going to start with ball pythons and then probably go to leopard geckos, and it just never really happened because we had to not only raise money to buy the breeder animals, but we had to get our name out there and make people aware that they'll be able to buy animals from us. So the way we did this was by buying animals, mostly on Craigslist, making sure that they were healthy, and then selling them on our site. This not only got us a little bit of money, but it showed people, oh, I can buy animals from them, and they have animals starting to show up on their site. But in the end, that became the main thing because it just ended up working out better. So naturally, when we were coming up with the idea, nonprofit never went through our head because we're going to be a reptile breeder selling animals. It was going to be reptile distribution, not reptile helping. So why would we even think of becoming a nonprofit? But then as things changed, people were like, well, maybe you should change to a nonprofit. It might be beneficial. I definitely looked into it, and it just never made any sense to me. Emerald Scales was formed as a dual member LLC, which is a 50-50 ownership of a little business, a little reptile business. And then eventually that LLC dissolved, and Emerald Scales just became a part of underneath GoHerping, which at the time was a sole proprietorship. Now it's an LLC as well, but it's just a me member LLC. Now, before I continue, a quick little lawyer disclaimer. I don't like paying them that much. I only pay them when I really have to pay them, so I did not hire a lawyer to fact check this video. All the lawyers in the comments, I see you. Feel free to fact check, real or fake, I don't care. In other words, I think I have an understanding of this, but definitely don't trust it 100%, maybe just 84% or something. So first off, the benefits of a nonprofit. No taxes. That's pretty much it. That's the main one. Yeah, we can also accept volunteers, and it's no taxes. That's mostly why. But anytime something comes along with no taxes, there's always a catch, and that is that there are very strict rules around nonprofits, because why would the government be like, no, you don't need to give us money, unless you follow extremely strict rules, which especially surround Inurement. I have never said that word out loud. I don't know if I pronounced it right. But in this sense, it's the idea of using assets of a nonprofit for personal gain. So a nonprofit cannot be owned by anyone. Yeah, it can have someone at the top, but you don't own it the same way you own a company, and you don't have the same rights to it. So yes, you can take a salary because you're investing your time. The nonprofit will pay you, and that'll be an expense on the nonprofit. So technically you can get paid personally, but that's because you are investing your time, and it is fair to get paid for that. Now, how much you get paid is a little bit more complicated. You can't just be like, I want this much. But the idea is you're not personally gaining from the assets and the growth of the nonprofit. Now, the long-term goal of Emerald Scales was to become an almost passive form of income. So of course, when it first started, it was taking all of our time and all of our energy, but what doesn't if it's a project that you care about and you want to build? But we could see down the line, maybe 3, 5, even 10 years down, this could be something that's pretty self-sustainable, and we could just have our little deposit coming in, a little paycheck from this thing while we work on our other projects. For example, we each had our own personal goals of how we wanted to spend our time. It wasn't doing Emerald Scales forever. It was going to be Emerald Scales would become this side little income. And sure, we'll oversee and we'll have control and everything, but for the most part, we just be chilling, doing our own thing. Now, of course, this is a very big goal for any project to not only become profitable, but become self-sustaining. But we figured with enough time and energy, it might work out. Now, so far, it's been 5 years. It has not worked out like that because naturally, I just learned so many more things of every day. It's like, oh, well, I never even thought that would be an issue that we have. So it just simply hasn't worked out like that. But that's not what this video is about, because that would just be more complaining, which I do a lot anyway. But in short, becoming a nonprofit would not only halt that complete goal, the whole idea of why we started in the first place, because you can't just have a passive income from a nonprofit. You have to be putting in work in if you want a salary in return. So not only was it that, but it was also Inurement in general with the assets that we already had. For example, unboxing videos. Now the term asset, I kind of understand it. I don't know. Words are confusing when legal stuff is involved. Like under GoHerping LLC, this camera is an asset of that. Now, yes, technically it's mine because I own 100% of GoHerping LLC, but if I sold GoHerping LLC, the camera would go with it. The microphone. My desk? I don't know. My desk isn't. I think the desk is like 50%. It's so weird. My accountant handles it. Don't ask me. It's all legal. I promise. But live animals can also technically be an asset. For example, when Emerald Scales was an LLC, the animals weren't actually owned by me or my friend. They were owned by the company, which means that whoever buys into the company or owns the company has control over the animals, but does not own the animals. The animals are literally owned by something that's like imaginary. Those animals are an asset, is what I'm trying to say, in a nice way, because it sounds kind of weird to call an animal an asset. But long story short, having personal gain from the asset of a nonprofit is illegal. That's Inurement. So I believe me making unboxing videos on animals, which are assets of the nonprofit, and then profiting off that unboxing and not putting that money towards the nonprofit would be my personal gain from the assets of the nonprofit. Now, if I really wanted to verify this, I could have just paid a lawyer and been like, can you help me, please? But there are so many other reasons I didn't want to become a nonprofit that I never even actually invested the money into that. So lawyers in the comments, definitely verify me here. But I believe that the fact that the advertisements on an unboxing video go to me means that I am gaining personally, because I would not have gotten those advertisements on the video. People wouldn't have watched the video if the reptiles from what would have been a nonprofit were in the video. This is the same with, say, the enclosures. I frequently did enclosure build videos and reptile room tours and meet these new animals. These were all assets of Emerald Scales, including not only the animals, but also the enclosures, even the food that I'm feeding the animals. Pretty much everything, because most of this stuff ended up going to Emerald Scales. That means that if it became a nonprofit, well, I just lost access to all that, unless the benefits of the videos also went to the nonprofit. This would mean that to become a nonprofit, the channel would have to ultimately be owned by the nonprofit as well, this YouTube channel, which I just personally own. Now, while you can't sell a YouTube channel, I think that's against terms of service, you can sell the company that owns a YouTube channel. I think a popular example would be Smosh selling their channel to Defy Media, except they sold it for stock and never got any money from it aside from a salary. So I would be basically selling the company that owns this channel to the nonprofit. Yes, the nonprofit can buy things, but I think the fact that I own both would probably be some sort of fraud. So I think I'd have to donate my 100% shares of the company that owns the channel to the nonprofit, I think. So I lose ownership and all the revenue from the channel goes to the nonprofit. That'd be great for the nonprofit. Those unboxings were popping off. They're making a lot of money, but that means that I would have had to get another job or start something else just to sustain myself, because the unboxing videos and all the videos is how I was paying my rent and how I was buying my own food and how I was like paying for my car. But yeah, that was my income. So I would have to have gotten another job, and then that would take away all my time from actually working on it. Now, yes, again, I could have gotten a salary from the nonprofit, but I don't know enough about that to honestly explain it in the video. But it doesn't matter, because don't worry, there's more reasons. And this also ties into the whole idea of volunteers. People are always like, I'll volunteer, I'll come do care for free. So in bigger companies and like corporations, it's illegal for a for-profit entity to have volunteers, specifically when those volunteers are taking the job of someone who would otherwise be paid. So I had been paying people for years, to do the work. And then if all of a sudden I would fire them and replace them with volunteers, that's probably illegal. That's a bit suspicious, because that was initially work that was being paid, and I was like, wait, and I have volunteers? And that's aside from the fact that it was a company, and getting volunteers would be kind of iffy legally and morally anyway. I just didn't feel good about it. I was like, if this thing builds to the goal, imagine if it's built because people just did free work. Like, I don't want that. I want to have the idea that I invested this money into these people and these people benefited as well, in turn helping to benefit me in the long term. Now, this would be different if it was a nonprofit. We'd get volunteers. They're simply donating their time to the nonprofit. But then that goes back to the whole idea of having to, convert to a nonprofit and all the issues that would come along with that. And while all of this, of course, was primarily for personal gain because it's a personal project and hopefully it could personally make me personal money, I also really liked the idea of paying out money to people by, instead of donating their time, investing their time in return for my money. So I like paying people. I think it's cool. I like being able to hire people and give them money, and which in turn helps both of us because they get money and I get money from their help. But volunteers, yeah, they could get a, hey, this person's cool on their like college internship paper or whatever, but I really like the idea of them growing too. For example, the first person I ever hired on payroll started at just over $9 an hour, which is not much money. I didn't have much more than that. I was clear about it. I was like, you're getting this much money. You're getting about $9 to $10 an hour. No more, no less. So yeah, people hate the idea of anyone getting paid that little, but A, I couldn't pay them anymore. B, this was a few years ago, it was a little different. And C, I mean, they agreed. It's not like it was slavery. They chose to work here. But here's the thing, over the about 1.5 year, 2 year, I think it was 2 year period that they worked for me, I was able to give them raises as I made more revenue. In fact, they went from about $9 an hour to about $14 an hour over the course of just over a year, about a year and a half. That is over a 50% increase. So imagine if it kept increasing at that rate, because I kept giving extra 25 cents an hour, extra 25 cents an hour. And if that kept going up 50% every 1.5 years, that compounds to a really nice salary in the future. And again, this is projecting like, oh, well, if this gets to that point. I never knew if it would, and I never promised any raises. It was just something that I could do. And so once I realized, wow, like their help is making me more money, which can let me give them more money and then expand, and it just keeps going. It was exciting, and I figured it could keep going in that direction. And still, 14 an hour isn't exactly like pulling in the big bucks, but just seeing that growth was pretty cool, and made me realize that it was definitely possible to keep growing. And having volunteers come and go, because like you're not going to volunteer forever. That means you'd have to constantly be like replacing them every few months or few years, because unless you're like just retired and just volunteering until you die, which is cool. I think it's cool when people do that. Most people that would be volunteering for me would be college students doing this for limited time, or just young people in general, like teenagers doing this during their summer or on their weekends. But when you hire someone, I was able to increase hours. It would be like, well, you're coming in 2 days a week because that's all the work I have, to 3 days a week, to 4 days a week, to 5 days a week, and eventually being full time. And eventually I did get to actually experience going from someone coming in 2 days a week for a couple hours to actually having full-time work over 40 hours a week. Actually, I had to pay overtime. But yeah, I feel like this all kind of ties in together of the ultimate goal. And I think it could be kind of a disconnect. I've always tried to be clear of what the goal was, but the problem is so many people, mostly online. I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm not saying this is like the worst thing ever, but the idea of emerald scales got morphed so frequently. I still get called a rescue. We've never called ourselves a rescue. I still get called a nonprofit. I've literally never filed a nonprofit in my life. We still get called a rehabilitation center. What? I just tried taking reptiles, man. They just happen to always be dying. So yeah, in turn, it turns out, whoops, now we have to rehabilitate an animal. That's not what we were here to do. And we literally got so many sick animals. People confused us with a rehabilitation clinic. We were just a handful of people, which when I say we, that also I need to do a separate video on who we is, because when I say we, they're like, who's the other person? Just say who they are. Well, it's been different people over the years. I've been helped from probably over a dozen people just with emerald scales alone over the past 5 years. So we is always me and at least one other person, normally 2 to 3 other people. But we were working, and we had this goal of what emerald scales was and could be, which was a for-profit thing that could make money and be helpful. Because a lot of people are like, wow, you're doing this for money? Yeah. And to help animals. You can have more than one goal. For some reason, if you're doing something for profit, it automatically means that that's the only reason, and you can't like enjoy it, do good things. It's just, oh wow, you do it for money. But it got so confused online that even people that I was working with would mistakenly talk about emerald scales to other people as a rescue or as a rehab clinic or as a nonprofit. But yeah, anyway, I got completely on a side tangent. It was us working towards the goal of creating something that not only helps animals and is a unique service, but makes us money along the way. How much money? I don't know, maybe a little bit of passive income each month or year, or maybe a full-time income where we maybe have to invest our time, maybe we don't, who knows. Let's just keep working towards the goal and see how far it goes. In the end, didn't get that far, doesn't make that much money, which will be for a separate video. But this is already honestly kind of long, and I want this to be a video I can just send to people when they ask why I'm not a nonprofit. So I won't go into every single reason, but we definitely covered the big specific reasons, which hopefully give you an idea of my thought process behind it and why. And it wasn't like I was anti-nonprofit just because I hate nonprofits. I thought it'd be kind of funny though. It would not have worked towards the goals. I think it would have worked towards other people's goals for emerald scales, which is me like in a house or in an office the rest of my life working directly with reptiles every single day. That's just never what I wanted. But it was hopefully going to be one of those kinds of things where if you put in enough work and it's a unique enough idea, maybe it could pay off in the long term, possibly in perpetuity. We just got to see if it's sustainable or not. What's the answer to that question? Probably not, but we tried. So yeah, that's that. On why I never became a nonprofit over the 5-year course of people harassing me to become a nonprofit. I appreciate everyone that's ever had any idea, period, and that could potentially help or benefit myself, the animals, the project in general, the people rehoming animals. It's great that you have cared about it and have wanted to help, but that's that. In other news, I enabled channel memberships. I thought I'd save this for the end of the video because honestly, the people that actually watch a full-length video like this are the most likely to be interested in this. Basically, it's $5 a month. It's like if you have money and you don't want it anymore, you can give it to me, but with some perks. These are mostly ideal for the live streams. I've been live streaming quite a bit lately, and if you ever want to tune into those, or if you just comment on videos, you get benefits including a little badge next to your name to show that you support me, and you get access to custom emojis. You also get early access to videos that I post, and a handful of other things like a private Discord server. It's similar to Patreon, it just has some extra benefits on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, thanks for considering it. You can click that. On the website version, it's a blue button. On mobile, it's a white button. I don't know why they're different buttons, but it says join if you're interested in that. But yeah, that'll be it for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.